Good morning, everyone. This is Dan, and this is the Napkin Academy. And today's session is going to be kind of a fun one. What we're going to be talking about are 4 tactics for being truly vivid. What I mean by that, pretty simple little idea. We've been talking for a long time about the power of vivid thinking, and I want to share with you today how we can apply vivid thinking right now in our work. I'm going to be sharing with you 4 very specific tactical ways to use vivid thinking. We can think about these as 4 arrows that we have in our quiver. 1 arrow, 2, 3, and the 4th one. Now these 4 arrows allow us to be vivid and get our ideas directly on target in a very tactical and specific way. The real thought is, over these last many sessions, we've really talked about the fact that we have 3 distinct tools for vivid thinking. We started out with the Blablometer, we then talked about vivid grammar, and then we talked about the vivid forest. And the way I'd like us to imagine these is that each of these tools is really a kind of a paper handout, a mental conceptual tool that we can pack away in our working briefcase and take it with us for problem solving, communications, ideation, brainstorming. And what I want to show you today is how to use that briefcase, how to open it up and use those 3 tools today, right now. So, tactic number 1, when we want to make sure our ideas are very vivid, go ahead and use the vivid checklist. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. We will remember from our last session, this is the way we can walk through every one of the tools and check off item by item, have I been vivid in this particular way? How to take a rough idea and turn it into a very vivid idea. Because we spent our entire previous session going through this checklist in great detail, for this tactic number 1, I'm just going to fly by it really fast and say, start right through with that checklist, download it from online, and go ahead and just start using it. It's a great guide to thinking vividly. Which brings us then to tactic number 2, and this one's kind of interesting. If we're going to use the vivid checklist to help us make our ideas very vivid, we can actually use it backwards. Run backwards to actually help us test our ideas. Through all of our lessons, our real objective has been to try for a time to move out of this land of confusing blah blah blah, too many words, too much noise, use vivid grammar to get us out, spend some time in the vivid forest where things could be quieter and clearer, and that's what we used our 3 tools for. Now what I want to do is say, let's say we've got our idea, we can use the tools backwards to make sure that we're absolutely prepared to come back into the noisy world and present our idea in a way that's really going to stand out. So we've got our 3 tools again, our Blablometer, our vivid grammar graph, and our vivid forest. Excellent. But what we're going to do now is we're going to think about how we swap the order and use them the other way around. And let me give you a very, very specific example. All of these lessons are drawn straight out of my book, Blah Blah Blah. Well, it might not surprise you to realize that the ideas didn't start in the form of a book. In fact, my ideas started, as all of our ideas do, in something that looked a whole lot more like this. And, I'm thinking, as I look over all of the work and the hundreds of drawings and quotations and thoughts and case studies and examples, it is just a big mess. And yet, that's not going to be acceptable for a book. So what I did is I used my own tools, and I used them in reverse order. And I said, in the end, what vivid thinking is really about is how to integrate our verbal mind, represented by our fox, with our visual mind, represented by our hummingbird. And what I was able to do then is say, I've got this idea. Let me run it back through the forest. Does it have form? Does it show only the essentials? Is it recognizable? It absolutely is. So all of the words of the forest apply. Now let me step a little bit further back. As I look over the pictures that I've shown, do they map to our ideas of vivid grammar? That is, have I been effective in taking something that normally would be delivered in words and come up with a way to show it in pictures? Hey, guess what? I have. That's good. And then I come back to the Blablometer and say, as I read my book one more time and look at the pictures, where does it sit on the Blablometer? Is it very opaque? No, it's not. Is it very confusing? I don't think so. We're in the clear. We've got a no blah, blah, blah explanation of the idea. So this is what I really recommend is if after you've gone ahead and created your idea and you think it's really good, run it back through the tools and test it and see if it's really as good as you think it might be. And you'll often find with just one or two more tweaks, you've really got a magnificent and vivid idea. Which brings us to tactic number 3. This is one that is a lot of fun and incredibly useful whenever we're facing a complex idea. It's creating what I call a who map. And the thought here is, no matter what type of challenge we're facing, something that might take the form of a story or a drama, something that might take the form of a decision that we have to make in business, something that might take the form of a decision or a case we have to relate according to the law. Maybe there's something we want to relate in terms of history. Well, here's a very simple way to begin to tell any one of those stories in a vivid way, and it is to identify the people who are involved in this story. Now, the reason this works so well is because so much of our mental capacity, let's say this is our brain again, and we already know that 3/4 of our sensory processing is focused on vision. Well, a very substantial amount of that slice is actually focused, of course, on recognizing faces and other people. As people, we love to look at other people, and we love to put things in the context of the people. So one of the ways we can begin to kind of unpack any story in a vivid and interesting way is by looking at the people who are involved and just drawing out a little map of who is involved. And this can apply to even things like secrets. There is a global, personal, interesting, fascinating drama playing out on the global stage over this last couple of weeks. And it involves this gentleman named Snowden, who released some secrets. And what's interesting is, do you imagine who are the people who are involved? And the nature of the story starts to become clear and why it's so fascinating. So we have Snowden, an American citizen who released secret documents. Well, he's wanted by Mr. Obama, but right now, Mr. Putin has him. Mr. Correa from Ecuador, for a time said, okay, Mr. Snowden, I'll give you passage, which allowed Snowden to get to Mr. Putin. But now Mr. Correa is saying, no, I'm not going to take you anymore. Mr. Snowden is now in the position of saying, the only person who says, theoretically, I might be willing to take you right now, if you don't stay in Russia, is Maduro from Venezuela. So now we've got interesting connections. What's happening here and here? What's happening here and here? What's happening here and here? All of it circling around this one man who is, for the time being, homeless. And it goes more than that because there's other who's, because he's applied for asylum in everywhere from Germany to Italy to Norway to China to Austria and so on. And thus far, the only country who said we might be willing to accept you is Venezuela. Now, regardless of the politics involved in the story, is what he did right or wrong, what's fascinating to us as people is watching the human drama unfold. Because in the end, any challenge or issue we're going to face is going to boil down to the people who are involved and our fascination with trying to map who is with who and who is not. This is the purpose of a who map, to take a very complicated problem and begin to find an interesting and visceral and vivid way to begin to take it apart. And this is something that can be done again for books. This is something that can be done whenever we're trying to face a big challenge and we want to try to understand what is it really about. Go ahead and make a who map, map out who is involved, and things will start to become clear. Which brings us to the 4th tactical step, and this is the one that we're going to spend most of our time on. This is the one that I think is really super critical as we live in this culture of so many meetings that we go to. And tactic number 4 is pre-create something we're going to call our meeting master picture. What I mean by this is, it has been my experience that in every meeting that takes place, there is one picture, whatever it might be, one kind of $1 million picture, the one that everybody remembers and thinks about whenever they associate back to whatever that meeting was. They remember that particular picture. We're going to call that the meeting master picture, because this is the one we're going to find allows us not so much to have control of the meeting, but to be able to guide the meeting towards the objectives that we want. And I thought it would be fair to be able to say that this is the honorary Steve Jobs Vivid tactic. One aspect of Steve Jobs' real genius was his ability to work at the whiteboard. And before he went into a meeting, he would think through, what is the main idea I want to come out of this meeting? And he, in advance, would create the picture that he wanted to show. It could be a map. You'll see here it could be a timeline. He loved to go to the whiteboard and map out the simple pictures in order to make sure that the meeting reached its real objectives and decision. So we're going to do the same thing. And here's the way that it can work. Before we go into our meeting, we anticipate what is our desired meeting outcome. In the end of the day, why are we having this meeting at all? Think about that. Then think through, what is the single message most likely to drive to that outcome? Draw that message. Draw it in advance of the meeting. Have it ready and prepared so that you can either show it to people in the meeting, already done, or even more influential, literally draw it for people while you're in the meeting. But the secret here is that we did it in advance. We anticipated and we created the picture in advance. Okay, but how do I draw my meeting message? Well, that's really the essence of all of vivid thinking, isn't it? This is really the entire point of vivid grammar. We remember what vivid grammar is. It allows us to take any idea that we think of in words and turn it into a corresponding picture. That picture is going to become the meeting master picture that's going to drive us to the objective in our meeting. I want to walk you through a series of examples because this is so important. I really want you to see how it can work. Let's say that I'm imagining my meeting is about a thing. It's about a product. It's about a process. Maybe it's about some people. It's about a thing. Well, my vivid grammar graph tells me that when I'm talking about things, the picture that I draw is a simple little portrait. So for example, if my meeting is about this new idea we have for a piece of software that's going to run on our cell phone, maybe some kind of mapping software, the picture I come in with is simply a picture of the device and my software. And that doesn't have to be just a schematic diagram. It could be a picture that shows how my software is going to work. In this case, you might remember this. This is a review. The problem we have for our software is we've got a lost user. The idea is the user will pull out the phone. Using GPS technology, the user will see on their phone their location, and now they're not lost anymore, and we've got a very happy user. Hopefully someone who will come back and use our software again. So that's the only kind of picture I need. If my meeting is to get clarity on what is the thing that we're going to build, just draw a simple portrait and let that be the picture that guides the meeting. Another advanced example is, some of you may remember several sessions ago we talked about an Enterprise Data Integration Initiative PowerPoint presentation. This is about a thing. The thing is some kind of enterprise data integration issue. This is a big, scary, complex technological thing. And what we did is we said, let's not present it like that. Here's the meeting master picture that we had created. We're trying to move 3 businesses to 1. We're not going to do it by creating 3 different technical back-end systems. We're going to do it by creating 1 technical back-end system. This picture is the meeting master picture for that entire pitch around the technical architecture initiative. Let me summarize. These 3 are going to become 1. These 3 are going to become 1. That is the central message represented visually, and that becomes the driving objective for the entire meeting. Well, let's say the meeting that I'm going to go into is one about numbers. Well, now I'm going to draw a different picture, aren't I? If I'm talking and interested in numbers, I'm going to be drawing a chart. And let me give you an example. Chrysler had some really good news yesterday. Chrysler, of course, big American automotive manufacturer. If I was someone in Chrysler and I was going to a meeting today, I know exactly which numbers I'd want to show, and it would look like this. If you look at cars sold per month over the last, 7 years, ever since 07, back in 07 we were selling close to 200,000 cars a month. And then all of a sudden in '08, oh my gosh, it went all the way down here. '09 was even worse. '10 came back a little bit better. The year 2011 came back, but nowhere near where we'd been a few years before. 2012 started to look a little bit better, and you know where we are now in 2013? We have the highest sales number this last month that we've had in 6 years. Boy, talk about a way to drive a meeting. If that's the message I wanted to deliver, this is the chart that I would have prepared in advance. Well, now let's say my meeting is something more about overlaps. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what if I've got a whole list of things, a whole bunch of things that I need to try to understand? How do they overlap? How do they intersect? Well, now I'm going to be drawing my map, aren't I? So let's say my meeting has something to do with, look, we've got to talk about this overlapping relationship in business between Mary, Tom, and Steve. Or perhaps our meeting today is about trying to get clarity on focus on either time or money or quality. Or perhaps our meeting today is about looking for the overlap between design and finance and business. If your meeting is about looking for the overlaps between lists of things, hey, now we draw a map. It could be as simple as a Venn diagram. It could be something more elaborate. Maybe our meeting today is about recognizing that communications within our company are really complicated. We've got lots of different people that are sending lots and lots of different information through lots of channels, through lots of different people on the receiving end, and it's becoming chaotic. What our meeting is about is changing this situation into something that looks simpler. It looks like this, where we understand more about who the sender is, we understand more about who the receiver is, and we understand more about the specific channels we need to use. Look at the power of those simple pictures to guide that meeting. Let's say that our meeting is all about timing. Today is the project management meeting. It's going to happen this afternoon. Hey, where are we within this overall project? Well, am I going to come with an enormous list of all of the milestones? Well, maybe, but I can tell you that the meeting master picture is going to be a very simple one. It's going to be a timeline. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's meeting, here's what we want to talk about. We've got these steps that need to happen. Here's today. Here's what's going to happen in the next couple of days. And here's where we'd like to be in 3 months. If my meeting is about timing, the meeting master picture I draw is just a timeline. And with this timeline and adding of detail as I go through the meeting, everybody's going to understand exactly what we're talking about, and everyone will remember where we are in the process. 2 more to go. Let's say it's more complicated than simply a timeline. I'm really interested today in this meeting about relating an entire sequence. Hey, look, you know, something happened. There was a big cause which had a big effect, and we want to map it all out. Well, now what we're going to draw in our meeting master picture, is going to be our flow chart. Maybe what we want to talk about in today's meeting is, what is our decision-making process? Maybe it's not working as well as we'd like. Well, let's go ahead and map it out. Here's how our decision-making process works. This happens, which causes this to happen, and it goes back over here. This picture becomes the driver for the entire meeting if our meeting is meant to try to clarify sequence, because we can all look at the picture and decide, is this the right order, or do we need to move things around in a different way? And this brings us to our last one. Imagine that my meeting is about a discovery that we've made, something that myself and my colleagues have really found out about the business or about our client. Now we're going to build our entire multivariable plot. And I've talked about this in the past, and if anybody wants to review, I really suggest you go all the way back to the cadet lessons, and there's an entire case study there on the Thomson project. It was all about our team discovering something and wanting to share it with the CEO of what at the time was the world's largest publishing company. But the problem was, we had looked through tons and tons of data related to Thomson and its competitors, and there was details and numbers and timelines, lots and lots of data, and we were able to distill it into a single picture that showed a single discovery. Our picture looked like this. It contained 7 different dimensions of data. In the end, it told us there is a way for this company, Thomson, to move up and occupy the most desirable part of its landscape. And the beauty of it was, while we were showing the picture, the CEO of the company, Dick Harrington, walked in, looked at the picture, and said, that's exactly what I want to do. Go ahead and make that happen. and here's a vast number of projects to do it. We had discovered something, we wanted to show it to him. We did it by creating a multivariable plot. Now, that's the end of the 4 tactics. What I really like you to remember is this. All of these drive back to something we're already very familiar with. What have we just done going through Vivid Grammar? Is we're recreating in a more specific and tactical way the famous old 6x6 chart that we've seen so many times. 6 essential pictures are all we need to describe any idea. And what we're doing with Vivid Grammar is we're saying, if my idea is about this, use this picture and let that picture be the driver for your meeting. So those are ways that you can use vivid thinking immediately. In fact, I'm guessing that as soon as you get off this call, if any of you need to go into a meeting or think about planning for one, remember, use the checklist. Run the checklist backwards and forwards to see if you've really taken this lumpy, complex idea and turned it into something which is truly simple and brilliant. Go ahead and make our who maps. Who are all the people that are involved? So much will become clear just by mapping out the players. And then the last one, think about what is the picture that I'm going to create in advance that I'm going to show during my meeting that is going to make that meeting absolutely focused and achieve our desired objective. Vivid thinking. 4 steps to do it. Just go ahead and do it. So now, let's conclude with homework for this coming week. I want us to review what we've just talked about in terms of the 4 tactics, and here's the way I'd like us to do it. I would like us to imagine what is our next meeting. And I don't mean you and me, I mean your next meeting at work. What is the next meeting you're going to walk into this afternoon or tomorrow or next week? I want you to take a moment and write down on a piece of paper who is going to be there. You don't have to even draw a picture. We'll save the picture for later. Write down who is going to be there. Then write down your objective for that meeting. Whether you're running the meeting or you're just a participant, write down your objective. Now here's the vivid part. I want you to draw the meeting master picture that you are going to pre-create for that meeting to unveil in that meeting. So if you want to review exactly what I'm talking about, go back and watch the central part of this lesson one more time, the meeting master picture that you're going to pre-create. So what I really want from you is who's going to be in your meeting, what's your objective, and what is the picture that you're going to create in advance to share with everyone else to make sure that you reach your objective. Hey, thank you all for another great lesson. This is Dan signing off from the Napkin Academy, but don't go away. Now on our new platform, you can still submit your homework. Debbie, our community manager, is going to join you right now to show you exactly how to do that. And I really encourage you, do your homework. Okay, take it away, Debbie. See you soon.
We hope you enjoyed this Napkin Academy classic video. We've made it easier than ever to share your homework. After you've completed your homework and have a JPEG or PNG file saved on your computer, come back to this course. Once you're back here, scroll to the bottom of the screen, and in the comments box, you can add a comment. I'm just going to call this one My Homework. You can also add images by clicking on the Insert Edit Image button here. In the source box, click on the file. In the Images window, click on Upload, and then click on Add Files. This is going to take you to your computer where you can search for your images. I'm just going to search for mine in Pictures, and I'm going to choose this image here. You can also add multiple images here. Click Upload. After the upload is complete, click Close. Then scroll down, and you'll see that the last image is here, and it's checked. This is the one we just uploaded. Click Insert. I suggest in the Dimensions box you change the maximum to 1200 pixels and leave the Constrained Proportions box checked. You can also add an image description here if you'd like. Click OK. You'll see that your image has been added to your comment. And now the last step, the most important one, make sure that you click the green comment button here to upload your homework to the Napkin Academy. We hope to see your homework soon.